So anyone interested in sponsoring, exhibiting, or attending can get a hold of those and get all the information that you need. Christine, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think the biggest thing is just mark your calendar. We should have registration open probably within the next 10 days or so for Albany, and then with hotel links to both Albany and New York as well.
Right. Some other things that are of importance right at this time that I want to let you know about. It seems that the building codes and standards issue is still in play, and either late this year or early next year, there will be some changes, hopefully positive changes in the codes and standards for construction and buildings. But right now, it's very important that the codes and standards folks get a clear view of the total life cycle costs of energy efficiency. Hope I said that right. The total life cycle cost of energy efficiency. NYSERDA is leading that, and they are having some public comments with which we'll be letting you know about. If anyone is available to attend those public comments and make sure that the proper total costs are included, that will be really important. Right now, their statements don't include all of the costs, particularly some societal costs, and those are going to be really important to the Codes Council as they make changes. So you'll hear more about that hopefully, but it's coming up, and there are we have until November 3rd to actually make some comments. Okay, as you see on the screen, we've got three more sessions before the end of the year, the second and the fourth Friday. The next one, October 27th, we've got Brock Yorty. And if you don't know about Brock or haven't heard about him, he's kind of the Jay Egg of the drilling industry. I don't know if Jay is on, but if Jay is the guru, and so is Brock. So make sure that if you want to know anything about drilling of water or other geothermal drilling, that you get on with that. Kevin, I notice you're on the call. Did you want to add anything to that? Is Kevin still here?
I'm still here. I'm trying. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out how to hit the button.
Oh,
so
we hear you.
Is that one I'm on there with him too?
We'd love to have you on, but you're not scheduled.
Oh, okay.
You are now.
Thanks. So no, Brock's a great guy. He's got a great perspective from all over New York or the U.S. with what they're doing drilling wise. So definitely tune in and listen.
Okay, terrific. Last commercial announcement that we have is another very important one. If you've ever heard about Local Law 97, you know that has to do with the laws that will quickly electrify New York City and put some criteria in place that quickly help the electrification movement. Mayor Adams in New York City has proposed some modifications to that to put it mildly, aren't going over very well in the environmental and the electrification community. So there are going to be public hearings, actually one public hearing, and we're going to get some information out to you about that. If you are in the New York City area, if you do business there, if you know anybody that does business there, we'd really appreciate that you either personally make a public statement or that you submit a comment, because this is going to severely reduce the impact. And we can educate you more on that if you either contact me or in some of our communications. There's also some training coming up next Tuesday.
Oh my God, I'm on the slides.
So, okay. I see a hand is up. Scott, your hand is up. Would you like to comment? Scott Ebling? Okay.
John Rath, I think there's a building electrification equity platform that's a sign-on letter that's going around.
There is, John. Thank you for reminding me of that. And that will be in the chat. Do you want to make a comment on that? Explain it a little bit?
Only that I get Andra bugged me about it again, and I just did it a bit ago. So I'm and she said, "Is anybody? If you can get anybody else, that would be great." So I'm just I'm not expert at exactly what's on there, but certainly there's lots of good stuff that I think a lot of folks on this call would be interested in. So yeah, if we can get that maybe put in the chat the link to it, and then people can read more about it.
It will be in the chat in just a second. I'm adding it now. It's really a letter. It's a letter to the governor.
John, I added it.
Thank you. Okay, it's a letter to the governor on many things electrification, encouraging her to continue putting the right stuff in her budget. That's a layman's term. All right, so let's begin the program. I'm happy today to let you know that we've got the Con Edison geothermal team led by David Orellano, and he and his team are going to tell us about some of the rates that they would like us to be aware of that I believe will benefit any geothermal customer. So I'll just say that Con Edison and David's team are really a pleasure to work with. They keep the lines of communication open with Christine and I, and they are very willing to listen to what we have to say. And as far as I'm concerned, it's a wonderful partnership. So David, I think, is fairly new to this role, and it's probably a pretty darn exciting one for him. David, go ahead and take it away.
Hey, sure. Thanks. Thank you for that intro. That was nice. Yeah. Hey, folks. I am David Oriano, section manager, geothermal programs at Con Edison. This is a new role that I'm in right now at Con Ed. Those of you that operate in Con Ed's service territory, you know that for the last several years we have been running geothermal, energy efficiency programs, incentive programs, and we've kind of been running them through a few different, avenues, channels, what have you, aligned with customer segments. Nothing there is changing. The difference is we're kind of centralizing management of those programs, so we can have a much more dedicated focus. Why is this change happening? We, Con Edison, view geothermal as a really important area strategically. I think we all know the buildings are going in the direction of all electric, right? And the more of those buildings that can be, have their heating and hot water and air conditioning from geothermal heat pumps, the better, as far as we're concerned. And we have a number of short-term incentives kind of aligned to geothermal as well. So anyway, long way of saying, I'm really excited to work with everybody on this call. I know I've met a number of you already. For those of you who have not, I look forward to meeting you. My contact info is on the screen. Please don't hesitate to reach out. I would love to, if you're thinking about working in Con Ed's territory, reach out, shoot me an email, shoot me a text, give me a call, and we can talk. If you're already operating in our territory and I haven't met you yet, well then my apologies. Ping me and say, how'd you miss me? Yeah, but great. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the select pricing plan. I have Fred Younghabi from our residential energy efficiency group, and he's kind of a peer part of the organization to me as I'm building out a team. He's stepped in and helped a lot, while I'm going through my own hiring process. And then we also have Chris Gallo from our rate engineering group, that he's worked a lot on this select pricing plan in the past. The select pricing plan is an optional rate for residential customers that we think is really beneficial for geothermal customers. And then there's a number of people on this call that are probably to it's their advocacy that we have this rate, and that we have some of the special parts of this rate that make it so attractive for geothermal. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to, I think, Chris. You're gonna kick us off here, right?
Yeah. Thanks, David. All right. So what is the select pricing plan? As David mentioned, it is a voluntary rate option available to residential customers in Con-Edison's service territory. I don't know how many of you are familiar with our tariff, but if you are and you're looking for the rate in there, it's designated as service classification number 1, or SC1 rate 4. It is a demand rate with no volumetric component for delivery charges, and I'll get into what that means in just a minute. I do want to, just as sort of a primer, you guys, a lot of you probably know this already, but from Con-Edison customers, the bill is made up of 3 main components, right? There's supply charges, which are the charges that customers pay just for the actual electricity that they use. There are delivery charges, that's sort of the Con-Edison part of the bill, right? It's for maintaining and upgrading the grid and all of the different things that Con-Edison does. Those are all baked into the delivery charges. And then taxes, which are, what they are. But so for the delivery charges on the select pricing plan, the volumetric component is replaced by a demand component. And as I said, I'll talk about what that means in just a minute. It is also a time variant rate. So there are peak and off-peak hours that apply to both the supply and delivery portion of the bill. And most importantly to you, and the reason that we're here today, as David mentioned also, it is a rate that is typically beneficial to customers who have heat pumps installed at their homes. So let's talk about demand for a minute. So most customers today, residential customers, are billed on what we call our standard residential rate, which is SC1 rate 1 in our tariff. And the delivery charges under that rate are based on the total volume of electricity that a customer uses over the course of a billing cycle. On the select pricing plan, as I mentioned, those volumetric charges are replaced by demand charges. And if you look at the little graphic there on the right-hand side, if this represents a day, right, one 24-hour day of a billing cycle, the customer's volumetric energy use, their total energy use, would be 47 kilowatt hours. That's how much they use over the course of the day. But the demand would be 8.5 kilowatts. And the way we measure that is it's the most electricity that a customer uses in a 1-hour period. And over the course of the billing period, we actually use 6, 3 for peak hours and 3 for off-peak hours. We take the average of those to bill the customer. And we do that for the customer's benefit because, demand rates are very new to residential customers. And at some point, they're going to come home and forget that, the idea with a demand rate is to use energy very consistently throughout the day. So somebody's going to come home, forget, they're going to turn everything on, and they're going to end up with a high demand reading for that day. If we use an average of 3, if they're careful the rest of the billing cycle and use energy more consistently, the other 2 will help to bring that average down and mitigate the possibility of a high bill. So that's the reason for the 3 different peak hours for each, for peak and off-peak periods. But so why is that beneficial to heat pump customers? As you guys probably know, if they're left in a single temperature setting, Heat pumps do a very good job of using electricity consistently over the course of the day. And the select pricing plan is a plan that rewards customers for using energy consistently. I can tell you right now, this is still a very, pretty new rate that's available, but we do have 7 geothermal heat pump customers enrolled currently. Those customers are all saving money compared with what they would have paid on our standard residential rate. And the average savings has been about 14%. So, obviously small sample size. They haven't been enrolled for a ton of time, but so far we are seeing what we would expect to see, which is that geothermal customers are saving money. And then sort of because savings aren't guaranteed, and it can be a little bit people can be hesitant to try out new rates. We do have a price guarantee available that will go to the first 500 geothermal heat pump customers and the first 500 air source customers who enroll. So they'll get a 1-year price guarantee. And what that means is at the end of their first year of being enrolled on the plan, we'll compare their bills on the select pricing plan with what they would have paid on our standard residential rate. If they paid more, we'll credit them back the difference. So it's really a risk-free opportunity to try the plan. Additionally, there's no set amount of time that they have to stay on it. There's no obligation to stay on the plan for a year. If customers try it out for a few months and decide this isn't working for me, they can opt out at any time. If they paid more on the plan than they would have on their prior rate, we will process that credit at the time that their opt-out is processed, so they don't have to wait till the end of the year to get to be made whole. They'll get the money back right away. So it's really a no-risk proposition for customers with heat pumps to try the plan and see how it goes. And one thing that's important to keep in mind, I think, is that there is seasonality to these rates. So if customer does try it out, I wouldn't recommend, if they try it in the first month, their savings aren't what they expected, or they even end up paying a little bit more than they would have on our standard rate. Don't panic and opt out at that point. You want to give it a little bit of time and see, because you might have a couple months throughout the year when you pay more, or the savings aren't great, but over the course of the entire year, you could still do really well on these rates. And on our website, once customers enroll, if they log into coned.com, there is a bill comparison tool, so they can track their performance. It provides both a month-to-month comparison and a year-to-date comparison, so they can see how they're doing and and determine whether they want to continue on or opt out. So I'm going to turn it over now to Fred, and he's going to talk a little bit about some of the communications that we've done on about the plan so far.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Chris and David, for starting this off. So Chris has already mentioned everything that covers the select pricing plan. And this option is something that we have launched a promotional campaign which went out last month, pretty much to customers within the Connect territory. And the reason why we launching this is just reflected on the previous slide that Chris shared, which we are trying to recruit the first 500 air source heat pump customers and the first 500 geothermal customers to see how they are faring on the plan. So first of all, we have all the material that Chris talked about can be found on our website. And we also have a collateral or a PDF that we can share with customers if they need, if they request more information about the plan. We have also, as of last month, we have sent out promotional material, which includes emails and postcards to all residential customers that have previously installed heat pumps in the Con Edison territory. So far, we've been getting huge responses, customers calling to enroll, and it's been satisfying to actually see that the campaign is yielding fruits. Next, Chris. So I think this is pretty much the end of the slide. We'll open the floor for some questions and answers. I've seen a few coming in on the chat. Maybe we can go and address those questions before we continue, Chris.
Bruce, do you want to look through the
Yeah,
chat and find the applicable questions?
yeah. Is David or Fred, would you be able to? I can't really see the
Yeah, so
chat with the slides up,
Well,
but
I have
Al,
them
I got
here.
you.
So
I got
so
you.
yeah, sorry.
so Gino, do you want to ask your question? No, Gino doesn't want to ask his question. So Gino's question was, are the customers separately metered?
No, so that's an important point I should have mentioned. So customers do have to have smart meters installed in order to participate in the select pricing plan. The vast majority of our service territory does at this point, unless they, specifically opted out of having one. So that's not an issue. There's no separate meter or anything that has to be installed in order to participate.
Thank you.
Right. And then Jerry's question, I think, sort of was answered, but how were the customers selected?
Yeah, it's a voluntary rate, so it's up to the customer there. The rate itself is open to any residential customer who has a smart meter installed, but the price guarantee is restricted to customers with geothermal heat pumps, but anybody can enroll.
And then how was that solicitation
I'll
for?
add one item. I'll add one item to that. I think as Fred was talking about, we've begun outreach to customers that have participated, in clean heat. So we are, we're beginning to put a little bit more. Well, we think there's a benefit here, so we're trying to get people to enroll when they have a heat pump. We would also love to, to work with you to help if you're installing in our territory and you'd like to begin to sell this to your customers because you think there's a benefit to them and you think it will help you with your sales, we're happy to partner with you, put our heads together and figure out how to work this into your business too. So.
Yeah, so basically, in addition to what David said, is that our outreach targeted customers that had previously installed heat pumps. And now we are, as David said, we are trying to narrow down the criteria to select customers that we think that this will be very, very beneficial to them.
And so the next question is, while this is a residential plan, is there a limit to the size of the residents that are chosen? And then along that same line, same person, different question, is it only single family homes or larger complexes available to participate?
No, so there's no limit to the size of the residents. It's all any residential customer, any customer with a residential account. So single family, multi-family, it could be apartments in an apartment building or a two-family home. As long as the account itself is residential, they are eligible to participate.
Great. And then Ken has a question, is can the clean heat contractors obtain collateral to share with their customers?
Yes, definitely. We have collaterals available that we can provide to contractors. We had previously sent out a newsletter that included the collateral to contractors to be able to share with their customers to learn about this plan, because we think it's very important for contractors to also talk about the plan to their customers.
Great. And then we have been working with David and the team, and we'll have some information posted on the NY-GEO site in the clean heat section of the site, which we'll share that link. So then the next question is, are the rates different in various areas of New York, such as Westchester or upstate, compared to Brooklyn?
No, so the delivery rates are not. They would be the same regardless of where you're located in the service territory. Supply rates, regardless of what rate you're on, do vary depending on. There are three what are called load zones in New York, in the art kind of in service territory. So there are two in Westchester and one in New York City. So depending on if whether you live, your supply charges will vary slightly. But for the delivery rates, it's the same regardless of where you are.
Great. Thank you. Bob Wyman, I'll have you ask your question or comment.
All right. Yeah, I'm curious. Con Ed provides a number of tools to allow customers to estimate, bill impact and such. And I think they've committed to build better tools in the future. Do you plan to have any tool, for instance, based on AMI data so that a customer could look at historical data and see if they would have saved in the past, as essentially allowing them to model the savings that they would get from adopting SC1 Read 4 in the future?
Yes, yeah. So we unfortunately we don't have that available today, but we are working on a tool that would do exactly that. That would take the last year or however many months of data that we have available, and would give customers a comparison based on the rates that they're eligible for. And we hope to have a sort of a initial version of a sort of rudimentary version of that available online sometime within the next few months, and then we do plan to launch a more sophisticated tool, hopefully at some point next year, that would also allow customers to not only do that rate model, but then also be able to say, okay, now what if I don't have a heat pump, but I install one, or what if I buy an electric vehicle? What does that do to that rate comparison? So both of those tools are coming soon, and we hope to have them, at least one of them, available within the next couple of months or so.
Can you tell me also, do the existing bills provide enough information both for KW and KW8 so that somebody could at least do a rough estimate now, even without the tool being there or without getting access to green button data?
No, unfortunately, we don't need. I mean, we do, because we have the 15-minute interval data, but we're not. It doesn't sort of calculate that peak demand for customers who aren't on the select pricing plan or another rate that has a demand component to it. There is within ConEd.com, there is they do have access to their 15-minute interval data, so you can kind of look at that and get an idea of like when what your peak demand is and when you've set that. But unfortunately, no, you wouldn't be able to do a great calculation now. You can, if customers do contact us, we can. It's a manual process for us right now, but we could do a comparison for them if they're interested.
Jay Best has kind of two questions. Jay, do you want to ask your question?
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So one is with a heat pump, I mean, any kind of system that's providing air conditioning, it seems like you would have a disadvantage in the summertime. But, when in the afternoon and evening, when you have high AC need, and then in the winter, you'd have kind of an advantage because the heat pump, needs to provide more heat probably at nights, versus daytime. Have you seen that kind of play out where people, maybe end up paying more in the summertime and less in the winter, or too soon to tell?
Yeah, I think overall it's too soon to tell. We just haven't had enough customers enrolled for an entire summer and winter yet. I will say that the bigger difference tends to be for it gets complicated as to why, but in the sort of the months where you change seasons, where you go from summer into fall and then winter, or the other way when you go from like winter into spring, those months where you have those days, a few days where you are using air conditioning, and then it cools down and it cools down and you're not. Those tend to be the months where you could get some of that seasonality, where the bill might actually end up being higher on the select pricing plan than it would have been on their standard rate. But overall, again, we've seen heat pump customers are pretty much performing how we would expect them to perform on this rate. So they are saving money when you look at it cumulatively. But we'll have, as time goes on, we'll obviously have more data that we'd be able to share and to take a look at and see what's actually going on.
Okay. And not that I'm advocating this, but I mean, could somebody sort of game it and switch over to this for heating season and then switch off of it for summer?
Yeah, no. So you can opt out at any time, but if you do opt out, you're not eligible to re-enroll for a period of 18 months.
Got it.
So,
Okay.
and specifically for that reason.
Got it. Okay. And then the second question I had was really just about net metering and how that would work. Are you getting a credit? It looks like Bob was responding, but how would it work with net metering?
Yeah, we typically don't recommend that solar customers participate in the demand rates. Typically aren't the most beneficial for customers with solar panels. They're usually better off sticking with the volumetric rate. And they could look at, if they're not just the standard rate, they could look at a time of use rate as well. But typically they are better off sticking with the volumetric rate. So we don't currently have any solar customers who are enrolled.
Gotcha. Okay.
One more question here. I'm a little bit concerned once the heat pump usage. We see the highest usage in the middle of the night when when obviously it's the coldest, the heating loads are the highest. And then also we see the highest usage when combined with electric vehicle charging, which typically happens also at night. But on the other side, this is where Con Ed has the highest, excess of capacity, let's put it that way, in their grid structure. So in other words, this is not really benefiting or rewarding the customers to the benefit they would actually bring to the grid by increasing the load factor when we have, and I don't want to say excess of electricity, but actually when the grid is not under stress, but it's actually running with a very low profile typically.
Yeah, so a couple of things. So I didn't talk about it here because it does get pretty into the weeds quickly, but the supply charges are impacted by the customer's load factor. So the better the load factor,
they are what they are,
the
yeah.
supply charges, yeah. And then also obviously overnight is all off peak, so your demand charges are lower, supply charges are lower, and you do get the benefit if you have a better load factor of paying less for your supply charges.
Okay.
Do we have any other questions? It looks like Will Lang wants to know a little bit about David's future role at Con Ed. Are you comfortable talking about that, David? You and your department? I don't hear anything. Did I ask that question properly, Will?
Yeah, I think he's trying to figure out how to unmute.
Yeah, I think you did. Just curious. It's an exciting new position. Curious where it's going.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Am I still on mute?
No, we can hear you.
No, we can hear you now. Can you hear us?
I think he got kicked off. So he pushed the wrong button. He'll come back. So,
Hey, sorry, is this working again?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, it seems like I'm still here.
Yeah, you're here, David. We can hear you. So let's circle back to that when David fixes his technical issues.
Right. First of all, thanks to the Con Ed team for coming on and doing a really good job of explaining it and making yourselves available for future questions and our members' contact. I would like to just close this section by complimenting two individuals in a group.
Before you shut down, could I make a comment? Okay.
Who's talking? Is that?
It's Bob.
Yes, sir. You actually are
Yeah.
one of the ones I want to recognize.
Okay. Anyway, what I wanted to do, I just want to make sure before we end this subject, that people realize that this rate exists because, you know, NY-GEO fought for it. Okay. And the really cool thing is that we were able to get a rate, you know, designed, implemented, passed, and in the field to address the issues that relate to the technology that we're working with and to the solution we think is important for the future. There are a lot of issues with SC1 Rate 4. I mean, the one that was mentioned, for instance, doesn't really work well with solar because with net metering, because net metering is volumetric and this is a demand-based rate. The thing people need to understand is that we were able to go, you know, work with the system to get a better rate for the kind of technology and for the kind of load factors that this stuff generates. It isn't the perfect rate. There is an opportunity whenever there's a rate case to go back in, and if anybody has any ideas how to make this rate better, and that is not only, you know, so it's cheaper for geothermal people, but also so that it's more fair and equitable in terms of the allocation of costs. There's an opportunity to do that. So don't take this as like, you know, SC1 Rate 4 exists and there will never be another rate, or this is the only thing there. This is basically a brand new rate. It exists because we fought for it, and we've proven that we can get people in the system to pay attention to our needs and to the equity issues. We should be constantly thinking, how do we make a better rate? And as I said, that's not only a rate that's cheaper for geothermal people, but also a rate that's more equitable and fair. It can be done. We've proved it can be done. That's all.
Yeah, and I'll just add, we actually, as part of the, you know, came out of the rate case that we just finalized, we actually have a requirement to, you know, to look at this specific rate and try to identify ways to make it, you know, better if possible. So, you know, we welcome any input that you guys might have.
Thanks, guys. Bob, you kind of took the words out of my mouth. I wanted to acknowledge you as a super important part of the negotiating parties. I want to thank Bill Nowak, who's not here, because Bill asked the Con Ed negotiating team to reopen this discussion. It was closed and it was reopened. And I want to thank the Con Ed negotiating team for being willing to listen and actually make this thing happen. So congratulations and thanks to everybody. I'm going to put in the chat right now the link to anybody who might have an interest in participating in the New York City Local Law 97 discussions. Next Tuesday, you can sign up for a briefing session that will give you all the information you need if you want to participate in the real session on the 24th. So now, with the time we've got left, I'd like to have John Schiavocco, who's on our board, and Kevin Moravec, if Kevin's still here, give us an update on the recently passed law that allows drilling beyond 500 feet. There's been lots of discussions, and I want to thank Christine, Kevin, John, Heather Deese, and Zach Fink on our board for really taking the lead on this and bringing it to where it is. So John and Kevin, if you're still on, would you take it from there?
I think I delegated to Kevin.
Okay.
Yeah. He's got drilling in his blood. Come on, Kevin, you can do it.
I think he might have dropped because he was on his phone.
Can you hear me?
Oh, now we can hear you. There you are.
Yeah.
I had myself muted twice. That's tough
Well
to do.
done.
So, yeah, as I was driving down, so this is our fall Empire State Water Well Drillers Association meeting night, where we get essentially someplace between 20 and 30 different drillers from around, New York get together, board of directors meeting, general meeting. And this is clearly an interesting topic for everybody. Just a brief overview of some of the things that we've been working on kind of feverishly over the last couple weeks. Once we knew that this was going to be signed into law by the governor, along with some changes that'll come next year through some chapter amendments, we assembled a sub panel of industry professionals that operate pretty much all over New York State. We've got some Canadian flair with it, some Massachusetts, couple engineers, couple geologists, and we wanted to design some kind of a form to assist the DEC as we move to some of the changes that we foresee coming sometime by the end of next year. Right now, there are no regulations on drilling. You can drill as deep as you want. And we, at the same time, have engaged into some pretty heavy discussions with the DEC, bouncing ideas back and forth, best practices, what they see coming down the pipe, what we would like to see from a regulation standpoint. Obviously, from the DEC's perspective, they have health and safety top of mind, and they want to protect the water resources and make sure that we're avoiding gas areas. They do understand a difference between Western New York and Eastern New York. Guess I could throw Northern New York in there too. They want the process to be streamlined. It has not been defined in any way, shape, or form. They can't get into that until we get into rulemaking next year. But they have been very active with us, direct phone call access with some of the individuals in the mineral side of the DEC. And right now, NY-GEO has pushed out, or we're in the process of pushing out, a well or borehole completion report. It kind of mirrors what we do in the water well industry, where it has a fair amount of information about the sites, about the depth, about the geology, the water that we're seeing, any issues in the drilling, things like gas, high volume of water, hydrogen sulfide voids, salt water. And we're going to industry right now and asking voluntarily that they fill out these forms. We understand it's not perfect yet. We're constantly tweaking it to try to make it easy to fill out with some information that'll be valuable to the industry. We are going to have a way to submit that form eventually through the NY-GEO website. That information is shared with the DEC, so it becomes public. And I'm trying to think what else I'm missing, John. You're usually good at catching something that I've skimmed over.
I think you did great.
John always gives me some straight pats on the back.
What I always say, and sort of like with sessions that you do at a conference, whatever you left out will be the first question someone asks. So we can open it up to questions maybe, if folks have any.
So Kevin, we've been doing under regulation here in Ontario since 2012. And we have a manual of about 3 or 4 inch thick. And then at the very end, we do have this completion report. I think you're familiar with it now. But thanks to you guys that opened up to go deeper in New York, we were able to stop our regulation here in Ontario to limit us to 650 feet. Some of our documents say we could drill like no depth, but some documents says we can only drill to 650. So we're very much appreciative of the fact that we relayed this information of what was happening in New York to our ministry, and they allowed us. They left us alone for a little while. So I'd be more than happy. You know, we have I have licenses here in Ontario and Canada. I'd be more than happy to contribute on this and to see how we can minimize and make it safe, of course, but minimize the documentation, because we don't want to go too extreme, but gas and water are the two main topics here. Also, what we found is that as we get closer in Ontario, closer to Detroit, we can find gas at around 50 feet. If we go close to Montreal, we don't see any gas for about 1,000 feet. So gas and artesian conditions are more of a general, more of a location than depth. And that is something that we may want to look at coming along in the future.
Well, we've got Stan Rietsma and Mark Metzner are both part of this subcommittee, and so they're providing a lot of good feedback with this. One of the things that DEC provided through feedback was they wanted a checkbox on our form to make sure that contractors, be it driller, designer, engineer, owner, we're still kind of solving for that, has at least reviewed the ESOGIS form, which is a database of all 46,000 registered gas, oil, salt, non-water well bores in New York State, to at least understand what you're potentially going to see as you look to drill deeper than 500 feet. So they don't want a lot of paperwork. They want it to be as simple as they can while ensuring that we are protecting aquifers and various other things.
Yeah, their environmental health and safety concerns were kind of the strongest ones that they said. Now that you don't have any regulation, be great if you could still be careful. That's kind of the message that we got, which we're into. That's mom and apple pie kind of stuff.
What about any change in regulation, or be the same format or form if we drill underneath the building, existing building?
We don't know. I don't know that DEC has really ever explored that. Again, I think that knowing where you have risk of shallow gas or gas of any kind, I would severely avoid putting a bore underneath a building.
Yeah, I guess there's no particular plans to have regulation directed at under building boreholes, but that certainly could end up being put into the discussion. Yeah,
I have a question on this and kind of the correspondence with the DEC. Has there been a point to collate everything that exists on the state level so that an installer could look at a given platform and not only see gas hazards, but also see depth of bedrock and also see existing water wells? I guess
so
if
we talked
geothermal bores, that should all be collated into a platform with everything else that we know.
We talked about that today. It is not going to be a DEC thing. All of that information is public record. So all of the water well information that has been submitted through the well completion reports, all of the 46,000 boreholes that they have registered through their permit process, that information exists. And I've, talking with Carrie today, I'm like, I can't believe that nobody's taken that information, either a NYSERDA or somebody else, and done exactly what you're talking about, an interactive map where you can hover, you can see. I know the USGS is working on a bedrock mapping project right now for New York State. There's a couple divisions within the USGS that are working on that. Depth to bedrock is relatively easy to solve for in New York at this point. The information exists. But all the other underlying information, especially when you start looking at the ESOGIS, if you pay the fee to join that, which I found out today, it's in the several thousands of dollars, you have access to all of that information. You can actually pull up their completion reports and view local geological information to depths, in some cases, of 8, 9, 10,000 feet.
That's good to know. It's something that I had been thinking for a while, and I guess my point being, I understand everything's publicly available, but the problem is the accessibility of it. And I'll just leave that at that. I think it'd be a really worthwhile effort on part of NY-GEO, and whatever sort of coordination would come from the DEC or something else that happens at the state level.
So,
do you mind if I ask one question? Is there a known mandatory exclusion zone for sour gas and formation that the mineral permits have had to abide by, for example, in New York? I know it's common elsewhere.
Currently, right now in New York State, there is no regulation, and this is historical, no regulation or prohibitions to drill less than 500 feet. Local knowledge and local experience may dictate where you should and shouldn't do something. I don't know what the DEC has planned for other areas as you look to go deeper than 500 feet. I can tell you that from general conversation that being able to drill deeper in parts of Western New York versus parts of Eastern New York might look a little bit different.
Fair. I think
just in how you construct your boreholes.
Right. I think one thing that we've had some experience with is these mandatory exclusion zones in populated areas can get kind of hairy for drilling in the urban environment for deeper depths. And this is really, it doesn't really, as was mentioned, doesn't have anything to do with depth, but if you're going to encounter gas formation, usually the regulator's knee-jerk reaction is to set some radius, evacuation radius for populations, meaning that you would, if expected to encounter gas in a populated area, just the expectation while drilling through that zone, even though it might be low, you would have to mandate an evacuation for that area. So it might be good to have that conversation with them now, so you can perhaps put in.
They will not engage in any conversation as it relates to under 500 feet. They are not directed to regulate anything under 500 feet. This is only 500 feet or deeper. So
this is also fair. I'm saying for 500 feet and greater, you want to nip this in the bud right now, so you don't have to have mandatory exclusion zones where you have to evacuate if you're going to drill. So that could be something that you see coming.
Okay.
Folks, I'm going to jump in here. Great discussion. And if anyone wants to have more discussion about this when we send out the announcements for Let's Talk, my email's on there, and I'm looking for topics to put on the agenda. We've got about a minute left, and that'll give David just a chance to answer Will Lang's questions about his future and the future of his team at Con Ed. So take it away, David.
Yep, I'm going to drop.
Cool.
I have to go to this SWATA meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Hey, yeah, sorry about that. We're staying at a friend's house for the weekend in the Berkshires, and the internet has been choppy. But that time, their propane delivery truck showed up outside. The internet dropped. The propane delivery truck left, and things are working again. So who knows? Somebody come solve their problem. But good. Yeah. So my role, I mentioned this is a new one. It is exciting. I mean, Con Ed would like to see geothermal installations increase in its service territory, right? We have a program, clean heat program we run in our territory, right? We administer it there. But you know, what do I see? I'm growing out a team. It's right now it's just me, but I have two people that I'm looking to hire, hopefully very soon. I have a couple offers out, so yeah, we'll be building out a team for partners to focus on working with this market. But our goal is to take our program and help you take the best advantage of the program, the incentives that we have available, and some of the supporting things like pricing plans, so you can go sell more heat pumps to more customers, and then that's really it, right? So I think there's a lot to figure out. This is obviously, as everybody on this call knows better than I do, there's a lot of opportunity. It's also there's a lot of challenges. Looking for partnership from everybody. Hoping to work with everybody to overcome some of those challenges and unlock some more opportunities. So yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Well, we'll have you back on to give us an update as you bring on your new people. So final word goes to either our board president Jens or Christine, our executive director, or both, and then we'll let you get onto your weekend. Christine, Jens.
No, I just want to thank Con Ed to be here, to be in that discussion. And I want to give, I know he doesn't like to hear that all the time, but a lot of credit to Bob Wyman, who started a lot of discussions and was really the initiator behind those thought processes at the utilities. So also thanks to you, John. I mean, you've been hanging in those rate cases with a lot of resilience, for your eyes and ears. So it's a great team effort, and also thanks to the team around the 500-foot rule to push all that through. So we made a lot of headway on multiple fronts, and I appreciate the willingness at the utility side to really start to look at geothermal more and more, because they start to realize a lot of the benefits it would bring to the grid of the future here. So great team effort here by all the parties involved. Thank you.
Okay, well, with that, we'll let everybody get started on their weekend, and we'll see you in 2 weeks for Brock Yorty. Have a great weekend.